Come on. Using the wedding gift money is totally fine. It's my celebration too.
She brazenly shouts this outrageous comment, chest puffed out. Her parents visibly grimaced, which was quite striking. My name is Margaret, and this year, I finally hit 60. What I'm about to share happened when I was 50. At that time, I was enjoying a carefree life, having raised my son on my own, and seeing him become independent.
Then, all of a sudden, he introduced me to a woman because he wanted to marry her. Her name was Nancy.
She was 25 years old, 5 years younger than my son. My first impression was, well, she was just notably slender and beautiful. She was someone with a neat and composed aura.
Can someone as flawless and beautiful as her really become my son's wife?
I thought, becoming slightly anxious. On a side note, my son takes after me quite well, not being, traditionally handsome, more like a charmingly unique-looking doll. Despite his doll-like face, he's always been diligent and kind, oddly never without a girlfriend.
Feeling a bit uneasy about the mismatch between my son and his beautiful girlfriend, I thought, how did my son manage to be chosen by such a daughter? And felt quite proud.
I kept the conversation with her moderate and said, I've prepared dinner, please help yourselves, laying the evening meal on the table. At that point, she raised her voice, slightly puzzled. Huh, is this tempura? Oh, don't you like it?
No, it's not that. Today, I thought I'd go all out and treat my future daughter-in-law to a feast. I splurged and ordered delivery for some special dishes, sushi, tempura, and soba noodles. Although I had chosen the meal carefully, asking my son in advance about her allergies, her expression clearly clouded over at the sight of the tempura.
I feel terrible if she forced herself to eat something she didn't like. I want our relationship to be as open as possible moving forward. After all, the reason I separated from my previous husband was due to a poor relationship with my MIL. I didn't want my son's wife to experience the same. If there's something you don't like, you can tell me honestly, okay?
Oh no, it's okay. You don't have to force yourself. It's okay to leave some. Thank you.
With that, she offered a smile, but it seemed a tad unnatural. Something about that expression seemed to harbor a hint of distaste. In the end, she only ate a little of the soba, didn't touch anything else, and took some supplements she'd brought before leaving. From what I heard, the supplements were to inhibit fat absorption, expel salt to prevent swelling, and also provide vitamins. She spoke about each of their effects with more enthusiasm than when she spoke about my son. When I asked my son on another day, it seemed she has a high beauty consciousness. He and she met, initiated by attending the same gym. Apparently, her stoicism was well known even at the gym. Since they started dating, due to my son's late work returns, it seems they never dined out. Basically, they have home dates at my son's apartment where he lives alone. Most of the time she brings her own ingredients and cooks for him.
Come to think of it, the menus were always healthy. Maybe she casually avoided eating out considering calorie counts.
So spoke my son.
Even gentle rejections to suggestions like, why not go out once in a while? Saying, you're tired too, have occurred, it seems.
Reflecting on all these experiences, my son expressed his view.
She likely didn't consume prepared meals because they would exceed her set daily caloric intake.
Not dining out was also to avoid going over calorie limit by accommodating her partner. That's why she had my son eat calculated healthy dishes she made at home since she was the one cooking. My son, not thinking too deeply about it, didn't realize she was controlling her calories to such an extent. Being at home, it wasn't noticeable when she took supplements after meals.
After sharing his perspective so far, my son muttered, I should have insisted we eat out at least once.
It was then that I finally noticed. But it seemed my son also felt a bit uneasy about the attitude she showed during this initial marriage greeting.
Afterward, he often defended her, saying, but she has a good personality, or she's a considerate girl, but it also seemed like he was trying to convince himself.
Is taking supplements that big of a deal? No, that's not where we felt uneasy. If she hadn't touched a bite of the meal, we carefully prepared to welcome her, all for calorie counting. She was a girl who acted very considerately, but essentially, perhaps, she really didn't know how to be considerate in the truest sense. I was the one who said, it was okay to leave the food, and I didn't lie with those words. but I started to harbor complex feelings, losing a bit of confidence in getting along with her. Likely, my son vaguely realized that he made his mother feel bad and was feeling uneasy towards her. Does calorie counting fall into a category of different values? I felt a bit anxious whether we could find a good compromise for both of us moving forward. Later, my son and she registered their marriage. They are planning to have a wedding. They are planning to have a wedding ceremony 2 months later. I was worried about the differences in values, but if they managed to register their marriage, they must be okay. My anxieties were probably just needless worries. I should leave the rest to the young ones. That's what I began to think when one day something happened. Suddenly, she came to our house.
As I ushered her into the living room, she pulled out a box of diet smoothie, the kind you often see in commercials, from her bag, saying, "This?
I found myself bewildered, taken aback.
I thought you might like to try it, MIL."
Thank you. I'll give it a try. Is a diet drink something you give as a casual gift? Could it be that this is normal for the younger generation? While I was left dumbstruck, she, unperturbed, continued to pull out various boxes of supplements from her bag, one after another.
This is a tea that promotes fat breakdown, and this is a superfood high in dietary fiber, and this one is...
Excuse me, Nancy? What is this?
I almost said, surely not all of these are gifts, right? But sensing it might come off a bit sharp, I hastily swallowed the words. I know it might seem presumptuous, but I sincerely wish for you to adopt a diet centered around these supplements starting today.
I'm sorry, what?
Mamiel, the photo you showed me before of you and your son when you were in your 30s. You were quite slim, weren't you?
Well, yes, I suppose. Back then, I was fighting against society's harsh judgment of being a single mother, working tirelessly while holding my son close. Because I often passed my meals to my son, I was indeed thin, or rather, almost skeletal.
Male, even though you've aged, you're a woman. I hope you won't abandon your beauty.
What do you mean? I don't recall ever letting myself go. Wait a minute, is this a roundabout way of saying you're ugly?
This is hard for me to say, but MIL, you're too overweight. It has been concerning me for a while.
Excuse me? I couldn't believe my ears. Sure, I am aware that I'm about 11 pounds over the average weight for my age group. But losing more weight would just make the wrinkles on my face stand out. When I was younger, I didn't have wrinkles, so being slim did look better, that's true. But now, my face doesn't retain fat well, and for some reason it's the first to slim down. So when I lose weight, various facial wrinkles become prominent, and my skin loses its elasticity, becoming like dried fruit. Aging is frightening. While being slim is better when you're young, as you age, it can actually make you look older, something the young lady in front of me seems unaware of. Well, of course.
Mel, let's aim for your body shape from your 30s. Don't worry, I'll support you. If you do as I say, you'll definitely lose weight.
What to do? The desire to get along with my son's wife hasn't changed, but there's not an ounce of desire to lose weight in me. Well, in that sense, perhaps I am neglecting my beauty, as she says, but I'm past the age of romance and more than fussing about beauty. I want to enjoy life through modest living. It's just not necessary for me. Who decided that being slim is right and anything else is not acceptable? It goes without saying that I started feeling uneasy in my heart again, thinking, to each their own, right?
I'm satisfied with myself as I am now.
What? That face? No way.
Excuse me?
I must have been glaring at Nancy with the most serious face. My feelings were torn between thinking I must have heard wrong and wanting to jump at her, asking what the heck she just said. I'm someone who's navigated through life with a hungry spirit, even when being endlessly mocked as a single mother. I was on the verge of thinking, if you're picking a fight, I'll give you one. But remembering she's my son's fiancé, I cooled down. No, I must keep my head cool. It's a misunderstanding, surely, maybe, probably.
Being confident with that face is impressive in a way. I couldn't walk outside looking like that.
Well, I do walk outside with this face every day.
It's like you're shame walking around in clothes. Are you just so accustomed to shame that being overweight doesn't bother you? It's quite the situation, isn't it?
Shame cultivates people. If you don't want to be an embarrassing version of yourself, you can uplift yourself. Come on, Mel. Please realize you're an embarrassment. Speaking with a tone polite yet commanding, like a school teacher scolding a delinquent girl, she ordered me. This is the first time I've been hit with such polite, heavy punches, one after another, I tell ya. If she would just insult me outright, like telling Winnie the Pooh's piglet, lose weight, maybe I could get a bit combative. Her considerate manner of speaking, as if she really cares for me, confuses me, making me think maybe she doesn't mean harm. But even if there's no ill will, it's still a problem.
Indeed, Mel. Let's go for cosmetic surgery. I'll accompany you.
You've got to be kidding. Even if she recommends plastic surgery with the enthusiasm of saying, yes, let's go to San Francisco, I can't. Or rather, is she getting a bit too much of a free pass with what she's saying? Honestly, I want to yell, but this girl is my son's wife, the bride of our household. I'll endure it, Margaret.
You know, as I said before, I'm satisfied with who I am now.
It's not about appearances, but I'm confident in my way of life and life itself. Those words were my genuine feelings. Even though my marriage failed, I managed to raise my son well, and despite only having a middle school education, I could establish this home. When I became a single mother, I was looked down upon by my own relatives, but now I'm recognized as a respectable mother, even by myself. Looks might be important, sure, but I take pride in my inner self. It might sound odd to say about myself, but I believe it's noble and beautiful. Whatever anyone says, it doesn't bother me. However, she blatantly scowled at me.
Are you serious?
What? Of course I am.
It was more than a little, it was quite irritating. It was more unforgivable to have my way of life denied than my appearance mocked.
Oh, is that so? Then, Mill, please refrain from attending our wedding to avoid ruining it.
Excuse me?
Because you might not care, but I can't stand the thought of people knowing you're my Mill. It'll turn a joyful day into torment.
What's with this girl? Audaciously calling someone shameful repeatedly. Even if it's just on paper, I am your husband's only mother, you know?
Sorry, but I can't understand.
I do understand. I am Aiden's only parent. You know, you want me to make him have a wedding without his parent there. That's so cruel.
What are you talking about? Even Aiden wouldn't want a parent like you appearing on his big day and being in photos. He just doesn't say it out loud.
Aiden said that. If he said so, I'll abstain from attending. He's my precious son after all. But if it's your wish, I can't comply.
It's obvious, even without saying. We are a couple planning to be together forever. It must be understood. By that logic, as his mother, there's no way I wouldn't understand his feelings. He won't be happy with the celebration I'm not part of. What are you talking about? You can celebrate.
Huh?
You can express your celebratory feelings with the amount in the congratulatory money. If you could give at least 10K.
Are you out of your mind?
Without thinking, I slammed the table and stood up.
The one who's unreasonable is you, Mill. Trying to ruin your son's big day with your selfishness.
I had always hoped that you would take the initiative to lose weight, even as the ceremony approached us. You remain the same. I can't bear having someone with no self-control as a relative. I want to cut ties if that's not possible. Having you absent from family gatherings is the only way to hide your presence. Please understand the feelings of someone who has to say difficult things. Her eyes resisting me were utterly serious. She genuinely finds me embarrassing. And it seems like she believes my son feels the same but just can't say it. Her expression almost that of a victim now. As for me, I believe there's no way my son thinks that. But humans are curious creatures. When someone confidently confronts you with words, even if their logic is flawed, you may think, maybe they have a reason for saying this. No way, but what if what she's saying is true? Am I really the one who's wrong? A shaky, unsure feeling enveloped my feet. But there's no use worrying about unknown outcomes. My strong points are my quick shifting and fast decision-making.
Alright, let's ask Akihito directly.
When I said that, she responded, yes, let's do that, swiftly pulled out her cell phone and began calling her son. Hello, sorry for calling while you're at work.
I wish she'd put it on speaker mode. I can't hear what her son is saying.
Right now I'm at your parents' house. I came to tell your Mael that she should consider dieting and getting cosmetic surgery.
For a moment, A surprise-like sound came from her son, probably exclaiming something like, "What?" or "Chef."
You feel embarrassed too, right? If your MIL attends the wedding, I figured you wouldn't be able to say it, so I told her for you. Oh yeah, that's right. Since both the surgery and diet were rejected, we'll have her absent from the ceremony and perhaps express congratulations through a gift.
The smooth progress of her conversation with her son is frightening. Could it be that the son really shares her opinion? Just as I thought that, an email arrived on my cell phone. It's an email from my son's computer.
"I've come to my senses. What should we do about the marriage?"
I replied immediately to the email that said so.
Get a divorce, I wrote.
She is still on the phone with my son as always.
Really? Your MIL says that's not the case. I'm glad. Thought I'd done something unnecessary.
Another email came to me from my son again.
"Disregard the phone conversation. I'm just providing random responses," he wrote.
I replied with understood.
Since consistently typing emails might arouse her suspicions, I informed my son that we'd discuss the details later. Listening only to her side of her and my son's telephone conversation. It seems like he's agreeing with her by saying something like, "I was also embarrassed by mom's attendance." Ah, I see, that's the play. Like mother, like son, telepathically aligned. I shall do the same. Predicting the tactics my son is likely planning, I secretly smirked.
So?
It seems that John also, after all, wishes you to refrain from attending the wedding because it would be embarrassing, she said. With a triumphant expression, she said that to me. I must not give myself away here, so I put on a bit of an act.
I'm shocked. I had no idea I was perceived that way.
When?
Casting my eyes down, she nodded profusely, touching my shoulder, and said, "Everyone fails to recognize their own faults, you know? Indeed, the young lady before me seems unaware of her own shortcomings, too."
We'll gratefully accept your congratulatory gift, so don't worry.
Understood.
She left. That night, it goes without saying that my son, pretending to work late, came to our house, had a strategy meeting, and left. It's a secret that I learned people can lie about working late for reasons other than infidelity.
While scratching our heads saying not this, not that, my proposal of, "Let's go with this method," was adopted by the two of us.
Now all that's left is to wait for the execution time. This came the day of the wedding, since she wanted to spend the day before the ceremony with our son. That morning, she and he were each spending time at their respective parents' homes. Therefore, my son and I headed to her parents' house early in the morning together.
When we rang the doorbell, her mother cheerfully welcomed us, saying, "Oh, you came before the ceremony. It's a bit heartbreaking as a mother myself, but it's necessary."
She, for her part, was quite shaken to see my son, who was supposed to meet her at the venue, suddenly appear and meet, who was supposed to be absent from the ceremony, standing next to him.
What? What's going on? She asked, to which my son quietly presented a piece of paper.
"I want a divorce."
The moment my son said that, both she and her mother raised their voices, saying why and why.
Her father was stunned for a moment, but quickly regained composure, confronting my son, demanding, "What is this about?"
"Your daughter seems to despise my mother. I don't see a future where I can live with someone like that."
You prefer your mother over your wife, huh? If you're a mama's boy, our family wants no part of it.
Of it, her father retorted angrily. She and her mother stood there, faces blank in shock.
"If my biological parents were told by my wife that they were embarrassingly overweight, need plastic surgery, or shouldn't attend the wedding, wouldn't it be natural to dislike that wife?"
Or, would you and your wife be okay if your daughter was treated the same way by her in-laws? Is that the kind of daughter you're proud of?
If valuing the parents who raised me over an unreasonable wife makes me a mama's boy, then so be it.
If my mom were bullying my wife, I'd cut ties with her. I'm just siding with who's right.
Gazing at the unwavering back of my son as he spoke, I felt a touch of awe, thinking how he's grown.
The boy who walked hand in mine now stood before me, able to declare he would stand with what's right. Despite all the worries and struggles, I'm so glad to have brought him into this world and raised him.
There's no way our daughter would say something like that. "Stop spewing nonsense," said her father.
In that moment,
Why not? You also said you were embarrassed by your mill.
she shouted, overlaying her father's words, Just as her father was about to retort, "My daughter would never say such outrageous things," she herself admitted to her imprudent remark. In surprise, her father whipped his head around to look at his daughter.
That was an act. I've been in touch with Mom and told her that our phone conversations were a sham, he said.
So you deceived me. Well, it ends up looking that way. But don't you think you brought this upon yourself?
"I didn't do anything wrong. If your Mill actually came to the ceremony, she'd be the laughingstock of everyone."
No, my mom knows a lot of my friends, and she's somewhat of a local celebrity. So there's no way she'd be the laughingstock. The reception might feel like a reunion.
No way.
First off, I don't have friends who would make fun of my parents.
Seeing her silent, her parents seemed to start believing my son and me.
Why? Why did you do such a thing?
Her father repeated this like a mantra, his expression gradually turning stern toward his daughter. We weren't recording her tirade, so I was worried whether our claims would be accepted. But fortunately, she dug her own grave with her words.
Just because of that, there's no need to hand over divorce papers on the day of the ceremony.
"You're the worst. I'll demand alimony." Everyone was dumbstruck at her tearful plea. Even though clearly she had no leg to stand on, was she thinking she could alimony?
I'm getting married no matter what. I won't sign divorce papers. I'll never leave.
She was acting like a complete brat. The calm, composed demeanor she showed during the marriage greetings had completely disappeared. Her parents also turned their faces away as if to say how embarrassing. It was a moment when she, who had been constantly calling me an embarrassing parent, became the embarrassing daughter for her own parents right now. Unfazed by the atmosphere, I laid out the reality.
There's no wedding or reception today.
She raises her voice. Huh?
You think we'd keep the wedding date as it is, even though we've decided to divorce?
What do you mean?
The ceremony has been canceled a long time ago.
Let's see. In your style of speaking, maybe I should have you pay the cancellation and engagement fees as alimony to me.
What are you talking about? You're the one who wanted to break up and canceled everything on your own. I don't agree with this.
So, you should be the one paying alimony and cancellation fees. In that moment, a sharp slapping sound echoed. It was her mother slapping her across the face.
Enough is enough.
Eh? Man?
She held her cheek, wearing a dumbfounded expression.
I've been listening all along, no matter how I look at it. You're in the wrong, and yet demanding money on top of it. It's utterly disgraceful. Getting divorced is only natural. After saying that, her mother turned towards my son and me, bowed her head and said,
She bowed her head, and her father followed, also bowing deeply.
Wait, Mom, Dad, is wanting a wonderful wedding a bad thing? I did say I didn't want the Mill to attend, but it's not that I don't want her to celebrate with us.
That's right, she didn't say not to celebrate.
It was something like accepting as a celebration feeling if you gift at least $10,000, right? In semi-hysteria, she yelled, and I just smiled sweetly, responding thus. My revelation once again widened her parents' eyes in horror, paling their faces.
Plus, you were planning to use that $10,000 for cosmetic surgery to get a cheek lift, weren't you?
Eh? Following the son's additional revelation, her parents gasped, then stared at their daughter in unison. She couldn't face her parents and kept her gaze downcast.
I heard you calling the plastic surgeon, and I also overheard you telling your friend that you'd use some of the gift money to maintain your face. The son continued.
Her face turned increasingly red as he spoke. Presumably, she was embarrassed that her husband, the son himself, knew about it.
What? You want a beautiful wife?
Do you? Even if I say plastic surgery, it's just removing wrinkles. It's totally fine to use a little of the gift money. It's also for my celebration, after all. She puffed out her chest, boldly and loudly proclaiming her absurd comments. Watching this, her parents visibly cringed, blatantly showcasing their embarrassment by holding their heads. In the divorce negotiations, initially she firmly refused to divorce. However, after being scolded repeatedly by her parents, told to cut it out, she finally signed the divorce papers. Her parents bowed their heads to us multiple times, saying, "We're so sorry for tarnishing your son John's family register, due to our daughter." When she signed the divorce papers, it seemed like she finally realized it's too late now, and apologized to me and my son through her tears.
She repeatedly implored, "Please reconsider, don't leave me." But it was too little, too late.
My son didn't change his mind, and later on, he submitted the divorce papers to the town hall regarding the crucial cancellation fees, engagement gifts, and ring money. Her parents understood that it was only fair to pay us back and agreed to reimburse us in full. Strictly speaking, we were refunded the money we were supposed to receive, plus a little extra. Her parents referred to it as compensation. After the divorce, she, on her parents' command, quit her job and was forced to relocate to her grandmother's place in the countryside. Believing that their daughter became obsessed with beauty due to being tainted by the glitzy city life, her parents seemingly thought immersing her in the muck and mire of life with her former grandmother rather than a glamorous one would be good for her. Surrounded by worms, beetles, and water striders, and being in a community mostly of elderly people with no one to compare looks with, they figured her excessive beauty consciousness would have to calm down whether she liked it or not. For her, this is quite a heavy punishment. My son laughed. Now, in the present, unable to give up on marriage, my son frequently attended an event called Singles Mixer for divorcees and met a woman there with whom he tied the knot. Interestingly, this woman is chubbier than me. I knew when he married his ex-wife that he wasn't choosing her for her looks, but I never expected him to remarry someone of such a different type. However, she is a kind and gentle wife, and now they've been blessed with a baby boy and girl. This Valentine's Day, I'm planning to make chocolates for my son with my grandkids. It's a bit early, but having held back on summer fun for the past 2 years because of COVID, we've already planned to hit the pool this summer with my son and his family. Just a tad worried about being invited to the water slide. Not sure if my aging pelvis can take it, but this grandma's gonna give it a go. Surrounded by my precious son, daughter-in-law, and adorable grandkids, I am at my happiest right now.